Hello there. Welcome to episode 14 of Little Big Knits. This is a podcast about knitting primarily, and my name is Selma and I'm coming to you from Ottawa here in Canada. And yeah, welcome. Today is Saturday, March the 10th, I believe. And it's beginning to look like spring here in Ottawa. We've had snow this week. But the temperatures are all hovering around 0, so it's actually perfect snowman weather. When the snow is able to be compacted, it's usually the temperatures around 0, so it's perfect snowman weather. Although nobody's made one in my house yet this week, and yeah, we're getting to see a glimmer of spring as well. So it's just really cool. So welcome to this podcast. As I said, my name is Selma, and you'd think I'd never done this before. And but I'm just going to continue on. Thank you for checking me out if you're new, and thank you for returning if you are. That's great. I have to say I'm always thrilled by the interactions and the community that's kind of building around Little Big Knits. And it's really fun. And I really always appreciate your comments. Just really lovely to get feedback from people and thoughts on things and whatever. So thank you very much. So yeah, my name is Selma. I'm Selma Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And we also have a Ravelry group called Little Big Knits. And we actually have 2 new threads in that group right now. So there is an Ask Away thread and an introductions thread. Thank you to the people who've come in and introduced themselves. And I post the show notes there as well. But we now have a coupon code thread because I was approached by Monique of Frog Peak Creations. She wanted to offer up a coupon code. So you can go into the group to find the coupon code and check out her bags. And somebody also started a thread about tea. It's called Tea Talk. So if you're interested in contributing to the conversation around tea, feel free to go in there. And yeah, so the membership in the group is growing as well, and that's really fun. So last episode I edited in iMovie. My entire Saturday was taken up by that, and in fact my dear friend Holly came over and helped me with techie stuff, because even though I had done a practice video, for some reason when I was trying to do the video I was having issues. And overall I think it turned out fine. I had one person comment to leave names and things like that up a little longer, and I agree. I didn't actually figure that out until later in the editing, how to make them longer. So now I know, and so thank you for that feedback. And yeah, so we'll continue in that way, and hopefully it's okay. Before I move on to what I'm going to be talking about today, I just wanted to mention the Toronto Knitting Guild. And they have a make-along because the Toronto Knitters Frolic is going to be at the end of April. I'll be there. I bought my ticket already to fly to Toronto for the end of April. And it's pretty much a one-day yarn festival, essentially. This year they're keeping it very simple. And but they are having a make-along. So you can go over to the Toronto Guild, Knitting Guild, to see about that. Actually now I'm suddenly confused about whether it's on Ravelry or on their guild site, so I'll put that here so that you can figure that out if you like. And it's a time to use up yarns from last year, or just join in the fun. So you can see all the rules and stuff there, and it's a good impetus for getting some of those yarns used up. And I was realizing I don't think I've actually used my yarns. I didn't buy a lot of yarn, but I haven't used them yet, so maybe I need to get on that. I bought a beautiful gradient yarn from, is it called Blue Brick Studios, that I'd really like to use up, so let's see if I get there. So there you go. In my cup today, by the way, speaking of tea, is some lemon verbena tea. This is a mug that I've had for 20 years. There are 2 of them. The other one's chipped around the top. This one isn't. And it's a local potter. You know, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you his name. But he's also responsible for that vase that you can see at the top there, that kind of picture. He's a local potter. He sells at the local fairs, craft shows and things like that. And I've always enjoyed his colors, very sort of rich colors. So I'm drinking lemon verbena tea in here, which is not from a particular brand. We actually grew it in our garden last year. I think it's the second or the third time that we did that. I buy 1 or 2 plants. They don't survive the winter here, but I grow them over the summer and then I pull them out, dry them, and take off the leaves. And I've got a little baggie that's there, but we've got a whole big Ziploc downstairs full of it. And it just has a very nice lemony flavor. It's not the same as lemon balm. Lemon balm is also a very lemony smelling plant, but I find lemon balm a little soapy, to be honest. Whereas lemon verbena, which is verveine in French, just has a wonderful lemony flavor to it. It's very fresh, and that's what I'm drinking today. So there you go. So today I have an FO, and also tell you a little bit about the sweater that I'm wearing that I made a while ago. We'll start with that. I've got a couple of whips. My knitting's not terribly exciting because there's nothing new. It's continuations of stuff you saw last time. I've got a rather substantial acquisitions section today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the prizes for our knit along, which is coming to the end, and I'll talk about that later. I'd like to talk a little bit about a next knit along if anybody's interested. I posted a thread in the Little Big Knits group about a knit along. I've actually got a little bit of sewing. Don't get too excited about my sewing. I'm proving myself to be very, very beginner when it comes to garment sewing, and one of them is an absolute utter fail. Really, like really. So I'll show that to you later on. And that's it. All right. So let's get started. So we're going to start with my finished object, of course. Oh, no, I'm going to start with what I'm wearing. Sorry. So I am wearing a sweater that I made. It's a very simple sweater. It just goes straight down. Very lovely fit. This is a sweater by Locatelli, the designer, and it's her On the Grass. I made this a good 2 years ago. I would say I didn't actually check. And I made it out of MALABRIGO ARROYO yarn, and I didn't check the colorway either, so I'll put that here. Which is a sport weight yarn. This pattern is meant for DK, but I can't remember. I think I almost got gauged with the sport weight or whatever, but I absolutely love this sweater. And I've worn it a lot, and I'm actually considering making a second one out of a more summery fiber. It's got a boat neck. It starts at the top. There's a little bit of shaping actually around the top to create a little bit of a dip, and then there's a bit of a ribbing type thing here before you go into a double seed stitch, I think it's called, something like that. Anyway, and then you pick up for the sleeves, and it's short row shaping. Absolute delight. I love this sweater. It's just a really easy sweater to wear, and I wear it a lot. And so I've been thinking, as we come into the summer season, about making it in a cotton linen blend as well for a summer version. So we'll see if that ends up happening, but that's what I'm wearing today. And so what else have I got? I finished the shawl that I'm test knitting, or I was test knitting because I'm not anymore. Haha. I finished it. It is the CUILITHIN by Madeleine Windsor. Now it hasn't been published yet, and I haven't actually asked Madeleine, but it's about to be published, I'm pretty sure. And I used yarn by Amy Florence, who is Stranded DYEWORKS. And I'm just realizing I completely forgot all the bands. I talked about it more extensively in the last episode. But here is the finished item. It's huge. It took up a large part of the 3 balls of yarn, and it has a beautiful fit. It's a half pie shawl, and I have to say I didn't get a chance to compare it, but I think it actually rivals my Exploration Station in size. They're both half pies, and I think that this actually goes deeper in terms of how it sits. I'll get up and I'll show you. So it goes right down to my bum bum. And so it's nice to wear in this very sort of more traditional way to keep you warm, but Madeleine's pictures I saw were, you know, she had it all wrapped up and, you know, as a cozy thing as well, and which would be great to wear. But this is, I think, going to be a wonderful piece. I feel like I need to take it to the office because people often comment on my shawls at work. And I think that people would like this. So this was a wonderful pattern, and honestly, well written. I had practically no comments for Madeleine. It's very simple. So if you are new to shawl knitting and have been intimidated by it, this would be a very, very easy shawl to start with. The most complicated thing is this lace, which is essentially a 2-row repeat. And it's just a very easy pattern. Like most pie shawls, you don't necessarily increase along the sides as you would with a triangle shawl. Like, actually, I decided to decorate the driftwood tree this week. I've got my Authenticity shawl. That's sort of a traditional triangle shawl where you increase along the top and you increase along the center. Whereas this one, you increase on certain rows. And pie shawls, I think, are generally like that. And so it's great. You don't have to constantly be increasing, and it creates a great, you know, perfect half circle, which is really a pleasant shape to wear. I wear my Exploration Station, which is a similar shawl size and a similar shape. I wear it all the time. That one I have here at home, and it's the one that I tend to go to in the evenings. I wear it to keep me warm because I'm often chilly in the evenings. So yeah, this was a wonderful, simple design that ended in kind of a rib of sorts at the bottom, and which just, doesn't that look like water? And these are Amy's bases. And so this is her fingering base, this blue, which I'll put down here so that you know what it is. The gray is her mohair base, which is stunning. By the way, I just loved working. I loved working with all of them, but you know, I'm a little partial to mohair. It's her mohair silk base in her first frost colorway, and then this lighter blue, which you see here as well as at the end, is her DK Superwash base. And it just blocked out wonderfully. I thought it was very crisp as I was knitting with it, and I thought, oh, what's it going to be like when it's blocked? And it's just got a lovely, lovely drape to it. So this is my finished object. I wanted to work on it and finish it because there was a deadline on it, and I wanted to be able to give any feedback I may have for Madeleine to her before she published it. So there you go. Really, really a lovely, very simple pattern. And Madeleine Windsor, who's the designer, is also Kingfisher Knits, and she has a podcast by that name. And she showed somebody else's version. Oh, look who's at the back door. We might see her again. She wanted to go out. That's Miss Yoda, by the way. So she's got a podcast, and she was speaking about and showing the version that somebody else made in beautiful colors by Nora George yarns. And so it's the kind of shawl that could lend itself to a variety of combinations. Really, really fun and warm. And I'm getting too warm, so I'm going to take it off. But it's just beautiful. So thank you very much, Madeleine and Amy, for the yarn, and Madeleine for letting me test. It was really fun to do. So that's the FO that I have for this week. Otherwise, I've been plugging away little by little at the two other things that I have on the needles right now. One is the ARROYO sweater, which I also spoke to you about last week. I kind of hoped I would have it finished by now, but that just hasn't happened. I've had less knitting time. I seem to be having less knitting time in general these days, and so that's just the way it's going to be. What can you do? And I'm also trying to spend a little bit of time getting into sewing. And so that takes up time. And family life takes up time. So, so here is the ARROYO. Since the last time I spoke to you, I finished the body. And I've started the one sleeve. So, it fits beautifully. It's a little bit more closed in the neck than the original version, and I just don't understand why, but it's okay. And let's see what happens when I actually block it out. But there you go. There seems to be a dark patch in the video. I think the camera and my notebook that are there are casting a light, so hopefully it's okay. But there it is so far. And there you can see the lace work. I'm very, very pleased with it. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a nice spring sweater because it's a fingering weight sweater. I'm making this out of MALABRIGO SOXX. This was made out of MALABRIGO ARROYO. And so this is a fingering weight yarn, and it's knit at a fairly tight gauge. It's with 3.25 millimeter needles. But I think it's going to be a really nice spring sweater. So I'm hoping that I'll finish it in the next week or so that I can actually block it and start wearing it as the weather warms up. It's going to have a very nice relaxed fit, which I'm very much looking forward to. So actually in the Ask Away thread, somebody asked about superwash yarns and whether one should use superwash yarn for garment knitting. And I know that there are people who have had bad experiences with superwash yarn, stretching and the sweater completely losing its shape. I have to say I haven't had that experience. This is superwash. It's kept its shape really beautifully. If anything, I actually think this has shrunk a teeny weeny bit. Like, I don't remember making the sleeves that size. I thought that I made them longer, and it feels like it's gotten a little bit more dense. So I question a little bit MALABRIGO's superwashedness. I don't know if anybody has had experience with that. And this one, which is also in a superwash, is being knit at a tightish gauge, and this was knit at a tight gauge. So I'm kind of wondering if that has an impact. If you're knitting a sweater at a very loose gauge, might that have an effect on if it keeps its shape or not? Perhaps also the kind of treatment, because I know that there are different types of superwash treatments. I think there are two types. One's about coating, and I don't know, there's different aspects to it. So I don't know if that could also have an impact on what ends up happening with the superwash yarn. But I have to say that for garment knitting so far, I have not had any issues. I also made a tunic that I haven't worn yet on the podcast, also made out of MALABRIGO Rios. That's been perfectly fine. So far I haven't had any bad experiences myself. Now I remember washing this after I finished it and freaking out a little bit, thinking, OMG, it's gonna stretch like crazy. Am I ever gonna be able to wear it? But as it dried, it just kind of went right back in. I don't tend to block sweaters. I don't put wires or pins unless I were to make a sweater that ended up too small and I was trying to stretch it so that it would fit me. I literally wash my sweaters and I lie them on my old IKEA drying rack. And I tend to move them a bit so that they don't end up with too much of a stripe from that, and that's how I do it. As I was growing up, my mother was an avid knitter, so we often had hand knit items, and we usually hand washed everything, and I was sort of the sweater washer. And we tended to lie them inside out on newspaper print. I know some people lie them on towels. That wasn't a tradition in our house. Or they roll them up in towels to squeeze out as much water as possible and then lay them down. So Anyway, that's how we did it, and that's how I do it now, and I haven't had any issues. So I don't block my sweaters. Perhaps I would steam iron them a little bit with a cloth on top that was wet. That might be something that I would do, but I don't think I would block it unless I had, as I said, sizing issues. So far I haven't had issues with sweaters, but if you have, or if you have any insight into this, feel free to comment in the group when the show notes are there, or in YouTube. So anyway, that is the Arwen, pattern by Isabel Kramer, who's a fabulous designer and super clearly written. It's a piece of cake. I'm enjoying it. And I really haven't made, I don't think I've really made any modifications to it. So there you go. And that is being housed in my bag by Madderoot Maine, which I so love, her trundle bag. I showed it to you last time too. Somehow, as soon as I start talking on the podcast, because I guess I'm talking a lot for a Saturday morning, I start getting a frog in my throat all the time. So I apologize for that. The other thing that I have continued knitting on little by little, and I forgot my sock blockers, is the First Star socks by Jessica Gore that I'm knitting out of Woolen Vine yarns. It's being housed, or they are being housed, or it, because there's only one sock so far, is being housed in this bag by Lowland Originals. And I haven't gotten that far. Last time I had finished the gusset, and since then I have done the heel and started the leg. But I am so enamored with the speckling in this yarn. It has just come out so incredibly beautifully. And the pattern is really pretty. And I wish I had remembered to bring the sock blockers, because it really, when it stretches out, you really see how pretty the pattern stitch and this yarn are together. I am a little bit nervous about this sock because it's really hard to get up. This pattern tends to tighten the whole sock a little bit, and when I was trying to get it on, I had a hard time getting the leg over my heel. But I think I'm going to leave it, because I have another pair of socks, the I Heart Bees socks that I made, that is a kind of a cable, honeycomb cable type of sock. And it was very similar when I first started wearing them, and they've loosened a tiny bit, and now I can put them on really easily. So I suspect the same thing's going to happen here. But the funny thing was, is that I usually knit my socks on 2.25 needles, 2.25 millimeter needles. And I realized the other day, am I right? I think I'm actually knitting these on 2 millimeter needles without realizing it. So that's going to add to the tightness as well. So I'm still plugging away at these. We'll see when they get done. I was hoping to finish this sock by today, but it just didn't happen. I didn't knit at all. There have actually been many days recently, not necessarily consecutively, but just a day here and there where I don't knit at all, and that is weird for me. I don't know. Yesterday I got my knitting beside me. I intended to knit. I didn't have time at lunchtime. I've been very busy at work. And in the evenings sometimes I just don't end up knitting. So things are slowing down with regards to that. So that is all that I've been working on in terms of knitting. So we're going to go into a little bit of acquisitions. I'm going to talk a little bit about the prizes for our Garments Galore KAL, our next KAL, a little bit of sewing. So that's going to be the rest of the episode, in case you wanted to know. So I haven't purchased much, but I have been generously given a lot. So the only thing I purchased, and there was a reason for this purchase, as I'm trying to buy things for a reason, and not just buy them because they're pretty. But this really was so very, very pretty, and it was hard not to indulge. Excuse me. So Crooked Kitchen Yarns which is a yarn dyed here in Ontario. I cannot remember the dyer's name. She is a dyer here in Ontario. She posted pictures of some mohair that she had dyed up. And here is her label. And this colorway is called her Nanny's Linen, and this is a mohair and silk blend, 70% kid mohair and 30% silk. And it's in this kind of pearly, linen-y color. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's so beautiful. I really want it, but I have no reason to buy it. And then I was looking for some yarn in my stash, and I came across this skein of fondant fiber that I had bought at one point. This is her colorway called Jasmine Scented Evening. Unfortunately, Deb has stopped dyeing, I think, for now, and has taken her website down. But her yarns are really beautiful, and I want to do a sock review soon. And one of the socks I've made out of her yarn is probably like in my top 3 pair of socks. I love her yarn, and I bought this thinking that it was fingering, and it turned out that it was lace. So I was a little disappointed when I got it because I don't tend to knit a lot with lace. So this is 800 meters of this beautiful speckled goodness. And then when I saw this, I thought, I could put that together with the fondant fiber. So I have yet to try, but I thought that could very, very nicely be paired together. And then, so, I mean, look at that. I think that just looks so beautiful together. And you would see these speckles coming through it, and I think it could be quite lovely. But then, I was having a hard time deciding which of the Whale Street yarns I was going to choose, if you remember, and I'll show them to you again later because they're going to become prizes or some of them are going to become prizes for the knit along. She had sent 4 skeins, and I couldn't decide. But then when I got the Crooked Kitchen mohair, I decided that the pink could also look stunning with this. Oh, there's that girl again. She really wants to come in. Maybe I should go let her in. What do you think? I'll do that in a moment. So anyway, so I'm going to swatch and decide, because if I were to do it with this, I spoke to Melissa and asked if she would have a second skein of this. This was her Newberry base, which is a merino nylon stellina. It's got gold stellina in there. Can you see that? It's actually showing up, I think. So anyway, I just think that those two could be stunning together, as well as these. So I ended up buying 3 of these, so you know I could end up doing 2 things, but I really would like a garment, some sort of like a little layering piece or something like that. So because of that, I'm kind of aiming towards that because I think it'll be a better color. But if I were to do a shawl, I think that would be really stunning. So there's no clear purpose for this mohair, but it will be paired with one of these 2 yarns. So that was one purchase. Crooked Kitchen's yarns are stunning. A friend of mine made a sweater from theirs, from her yarns, and it's just gorgeous. And I go on there all the time and look at her yarns. Really, really beautiful. Something else that came into my life actually at Christmas time, but I didn't show you guys, was my friend in Germany, Dana, sent me this wonderful skein, and it's a beautiful peach color of Lang Super Socks in their cashmere color 4-ply. So this is a 65 wool, 25 nylon, and 10% cashmere. It's beautifully soft, and I've never seen cashmere in a commercial yarn like this. I'm very intrigued by it, and I love the color, but I just hadn't showed it to you guys. I haven't had an acquisition section for a while. She also sent this beautiful fabric. which was a reminder of our time together in Scotland last year, because we were in at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival together last year. And so when I saw this, it was so beautiful. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I want to do with this to have it as a constant reminder of that wonderful trip. That was a stunning, stunning trip last year to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and it's killing me that I'm not going this year. Just killing me, but I'll get over it. And I'm starting to plan for next year. We'll see. But yeah, this is really a beautiful color, and I can't wait to make socks out of it. It looks like it's got a subtle sort of gradient striping thing happening on it. So thank you, Dana. Or Dana. I always call you Dana. I have a friend named Dana and a friend named Dana, and I mix them up all the time. I also mix up Holly and Crystal all the time. It's a strange thing. I mix up people's names. So, what else has come into my life? Another gift came in for you guys and for me from Holland Handmade, which is Erin. Erin and I met at Edinburgh Yarn Festival last year, and she's also got a podcast. And Erin used to be very much into bag making. She made beautiful project bags, and now she's gotten back into dyeing. And so she sent these two beautiful skeins. She didn't have my number or anything. This absolutely stunning purple, which is called Selma Loves Purple. And she got the yarn base at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Isn't that sweet? That is so sweet, Erin. And this one, which is a one-of-a-kind tonal. I have to say, I'm really intrigued by this tonal, but it says Selma Loves Purple. That was so sweet, Erin. And it's a beautiful BFL base, this one. So these are just gorgeous, and they're really beautiful together. And she's also sent a mini set of fun, fun, fun bright colors. I am just loving those. Look at that yellow. Super fun. So one or some of this will become a prize at some point. Thank you so much, Erin. I forgot to unplug the phone. I'll be back. All right, so I unplugged the phone, let the cat in, so let's see how things go. Sorry about that. I always have to remember to put my phone in airplane mode and unplug the phone, because inevitably there's a phone call during the whole thing. Anyway, thank you again, Erin, for those. And Erin is going back to EYF. So many people are going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year. Did I tell you that it's killing me that I'm not going? I'll get over it, right? I will get over it. So, and I actually decided, oh, hello, Miss Yoda. Do you want to come say hi? Oh, you're not going to go up there, are you? Yeah. Hello. So I decided that if I couldn't go to EYF, I would take a sewing class. So more to come on that, because there are two sewing classes in town that I'd like to take. One was for the Monetta dress, but it's currently full, so I'm going to see if they open up a second one. And another one was for a fitted coutured skirt, like with a lining and an invisible zipper and fitted and all that stuff. So we'll see what I end up doing. But one of my other purchases was this LENA magazine, which I got from Farm to Cables. Dale had one last copy, and she was willing to give it to me, so thank you very much, Dale. And Dale is also at EYF. Anyway, it's crazy when these festivals start. Everybody starts talking about these festivals, and it can make you a little crazy making. So I got the recent edition of LENA. It just came out, and you're going to hear that it's stunning, and it's absolutely stunning. And I actually think it's probably their best edition up to this point. So if you've been not wanting to get one and would like to get one, I think I recommend this one. It's really beautiful. There are so many, especially if you are a garment maker, because I would say that this one is primarily about garments. Look at that sweater by Camilla Vad or Vlad? Camilla Vad. It's a fingering and mohair blend that you knit together. And this one, which was by Fiona Alice, who is a Canadian designer, and I love the texture on that. So it's just full of beautiful sweaters. A super simple ribbed cardigan. The next one is beautiful, called Kate. Really gorgeous fingering weight cardigan that I was looking at yesterday and wondering, do I have yarn for that? This one by Isabel Kramer, whose design Arwen is. It's a beautiful cabled sweater that I really like, and it's a DK base, and I've been, of course, pair of socks by Helen Stewart, really beautiful socks. Anyway, it's just really chock full, beautiful patterns. There is one hat pattern, but you know, these editions are investments, and I have to say I'm really, really glad that I invested in this one, because I think I could see myself easily making 3 of the sweaters in here. They're just really, really beautiful. And there's a shawl as well. And anyway, the quality of the paper, little articles. There's an article about Paris. There's an article about Jared Flood. There's an article about La Bien Aimée, the dyer. So lots of great stuff in here. I'm just love looking through it, and have looked through it several times and have to sit down and actually read the articles now. So that's something else in terms of acquisitions. And I feel like, what else? I got to look at my list. A couple of patterns came into my life too. One is by a member of our group, Lena STRANDBERG, and it's the SPRINGA socks. So these are a lovely, lovely pattern with a simple lace going up the leg, and then the lace going down just one side of the foot. Very, very nice. So she had gifted that to me a good month ago, but I didn't have a chance to show it to you in the last episode. So thank you very much, Lena. Anna Friberg, I think everybody's Swedish here, just came out with a pattern called the Crazy Cat Lady, and they're these super fun colorwork socks with cats at the top. So they're striped, not with self-striping yarn, although I think you could use self-striping yarn, like a really fun, bold self-striping yarn, and then use something else for the kitty cats at the top. And the last thing that came in was this sweater, which is just absolutely stunning, by Ellie of SKEIN Dear Knits, called the Blåfjäll sweater. Just stunning. Uh-oh. I think I'm going to have some extra entertainment here for you. Anyway, those are patterns that have come into my life. You know, when Yoda goes out, when she comes in, she's hyper. It's strange. I don't quite understand why, because she's just been outside. She could have been hyper outside. But usually she comes in and she just wants to play and gets rambunctious for a little while. So there she is, destroying the carpet. Yeah, so I think that's about it. There's one last little thing, but I wanted to be sure that I'd mention everything else. So I'm going down my list. Looks like I'm reading. My friend Sue of the Two Tangled Skeins podcast and of the Tangled Skein CA Etsy shop made me some stitch markers. We were talking about the little kitty cat stitch markers that we're seeing, and she said that were made by somebody. And anyway, a couple of podcasters, sorry, I don't remember who, a couple of podcasters were showing them, and I was like, oh, I really like those, but the shipping was really, really, really expensive. And I was just like, oh, you know, do I really want to spend that much on some stitch markers? And she said, oh, well, my provider has those, so why don't we make some? So we've got these most hilarious, speaking of cats and rambunctious cats that we have in this house, or the rambunctious cat that we have in this house. There's some more. So there are 6, and Sue's, I've spoken before about Sue's stitch markers because I really like them. She has these rings, they're snagless, and she always has a bead on them. So they're really, really fabulous. So I just really like them, and she basically color-coded the beads with the cat. So this cat got a pink bead because of the little pink nose. So they're really fabulous. And she's actually put some sets, not necessarily all cats, but so her snagless stitch markers with one progress keeper that's a cat. So go and check her shop out because they're just so much fun. So much fun. And I really do love her stitch markers. There's another white cat. Anyway, they're just hilarious. I absolutely adore them. And I can't wait to start using them because they make me smile, these kitty cats. There was no gray cat though. She also made me a progress keeper with an S on it. So thank you so much, Sue. So I just feel like it's Christmas. I've just received so many beautiful things from people. So thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. So on to the, speaking of more stuff, prizes for the KAL. So we've had this wonderful knit along. I'm so happy that we did this. I've been co-hosting this knit along with Kate of the Hawthorn Cottage Craft podcast. Selma having a hard time speaking today. And I'll actually put it down here this time because I realized last time I didn't actually put it down there. So we have been co-hosting this Garments Galore KAL with the hashtag Garments Galore KAL. And it was for garments. It started at the beginning of October and it's ending now at the end of March. The 31st of March is the last day for the KAL. I probably won't be up at midnight to close the thread, but I'll probably close it first thing in the morning on April 1st. We've got so many entries. I'm just thrilled with the number of people who have joined me in knitting garments for the last 6 months, 5 months. And there's some people who have knit their first sweater as well. And I've got a thread for your first sweater. Kate's got an extra thread in hers for the Mount Everest sweater. So if you've knit more than something with more than 1,400 meters, I'm getting completely distracted because there's a teenager over there who's just woken up at 11 o'clock. So, and he's going to the kitchen and hopefully won't make too much noise. So anyway, so we've each got FO threads, but we've each got those special threads as well. So you've still got a little over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks to finish up a sweater if you want to join in. If you were to knit something in bulky weight, you might actually be able to start it and finish it and join us in the Garment KAL. It has been so much fun. So thank you everybody who's come in and chatted in the chatter thread and joined in. So it's been really great fun. So I wanted to go through some of the prizes because a couple haven't arrived yet. In terms of, there'll be some patterns that'll be part of it. So Luli, who is Lee Christensen, she had gifted me this for the giveaway. It's a trio of patterns and I only printed the outside because our printer was getting into trouble yesterday, so I didn't want to risk ending up with 20,000 copies in color of this. So I thought I'll just print the first page and then print it properly when I want to knit it, because this is a trio of patterns for socks, mitts and a hat with this wonderful pattern around each one of them. So it's sort of like a simple color work pattern. So that will be one of the giveaways. Ellie of SKEIN Dear has also offered up a copy of this for the giveaway as well. So this will also be one of the prizes. There may be another pattern as well. I'm not 100% sure yet, and I'll let you know about that one. And then in terms of yarn, there was the gigantic bag of MALABRIGO yarn. So some of that will become a prize. That will be a big prize, I think, because that will probably be a sweater quantity of prize of your choosing, whoever ends up being chosen. Whoever, it'll be random generator. So that'll be another prize. And then there'll be probably a skein, one of these skeins, these gorgeous skeins by Melissa of Wales Design, who also has a podcast, by the way, and I'm really enjoying it. She is a very adventure, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, she talks about her adventures in knitting and sewing. So she makes all kinds of great stuff. So it'll be one of these that will also be part of the knit along. And then there are 2 bags. So I didn't want to open up the package, but you might recall that we were gifted a set in a different color, kind of more of a rose, faded rose kind of color, really neat color, a bag by Ink Bags, along with, in the same color, a faded rose, a Notions pouch. So I've really enjoyed using both of these a lot. So that will be a prize, as well as a bag by Sue of the Tangled SKEIN CA. She just hasn't given it to me yet. So when the KAL is actually over and we're getting ready to wrap up, so it'll probably be possibly my next episode, then we'll draw the names, and she just wants to steal the show. That's it. Anyway, we'll draw the names and give out the prizes. And yeah, it's been so great. I feel like, you know, I've gotten to know people through this KAL, and people have just been so much fun to interact with. And so thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. It's been super duper fun. So I started thinking, when I get to about this time of the year and we start getting to the end of winter, I start thinking about all the cotton and linen that I have in my stash, in sweater quantities, of course. And I start wanting to make summer sweaters. Although oddly, I'm not quite finished with winter sweater knitting this time. So I was thinking that it could be nice to have our next knit along be about items made with summer fibers. Now I have a child who's entered the living room right there to get a... I'm just going to edit this out, right? Maybe not. I don't know. Do you want to say hello?
Hi.
She's in her PJs, relaxing upstairs. So I got completely distracted by family and cats and things, so I have no idea what I was talking about. But I believe I was telling you that I just start thinking about making things out of summer fibers. So I opened a thread in the Little Big Knits group to see if there was any interest, and if there are any other knit-alongs that you'd be interested in having in our group over the next few months. So far there seems to be interest in having a summer fibers KAL, so I think I'm just going to go ahead with that. But if you have some other ideas, let me know, because it'd be fun to, you know, we could even have 2 knit-alongs going on or keep it for the fall. But this is how it's going to go. It's going to start April 1st. So basically the morning I close the threads for the Garments Galore KAL, we're going to start the summer fibers KAL. And I think it's going to go until the last day of September. Because that's kind of our summer season here. So I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do. So it'll be April, May, June, July, August, September. So it'll be 6 months. And what you knit must contain at least 45%. And there's a reason I say 45% and not 50%. I'm going to say 45% of a plant-based fiber. So that could be cotton, linen, nettle, bamboo, hemp, anything like that. And I'm saying not 50%, it has to be at least 45%, because I'm interested, and I know somebody else is interested in using the Coast by Holst Garn, and it's 45% cotton and 55% wool. So, but I do think it has to be at least that, because otherwise you're really talking more about a winter-like fiber that's got a bit of a summer-like fiber in it. And so it doesn't have to be a garment. I'm going to say that it just has to be more than 100 grams. Okay. So yeah, it has to be, no, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say it has to be more than 50 grams in order to be an entry. And there might be some other, you know, little conditions, but I think that. So, you know, like 1 dishcloth, maybe not, but 2 dishcloths, that would be fine. So I just have to figure out the math around that, whether you get 2 dishcloths out of a 50 gram ball, because I know that some people would like to enter that, and that's fine. Yeah, so I'll come up with those details, but basically it could be for anything. You want to crochet or knit a bikini, that would be fine too, or a sweater or a shawl or a tablecloth or whatever. There's so many beautiful things that you can do with linen. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So starting April 1st, we're going to have a new knit along. So I'll talk a little bit more about that once I've figured out all the little details at our next episode. Now, lastly, we'll go into a little bit of sewing, and I'm going to do this in a chronological order. I told you guys that I wanted to get into a little bit more sewing or diversify my crafts a little bit. I'd like to do other things as well to find some balance in my life, because I felt like I spent a lot of time sewing. And you know, the fact that I do spend evenings and a lot of time knitting, the fact that I do seem to have these evenings or days where I don't end up knitting and I don't feel upset about it like I would have before, tells me that I'm, you know, I still absolutely adore knitting, but I think I just need respite from it from time to time, or I need something else. So I've been wanting to get into sewing a little bit more. I can sew bags, no problem, but garment sewing seems like a logical step since I love garment making for knitting. But I started this sewing season with my daughter because she doesn't like to use a knapsack, and she was using a little sack like the one we ended up making for her, but it was just there was no lining. It was just something she got somewhere, and it was really falling apart. So I said, well, why don't we make you one? So we went through my stash. She's added this little furry heart thing on it. We went through my stash and found this fox fabric, and then we found this little mini fox fabric that I had got from, I think I got it from fabric.com a while ago, or Fat Quarter shop online. I can't quite remember. We made this drawstring bag that's attached at the bottom, that's like a knapsack. And she actually really uses this every single day to go to school. She puts her lunch bag in it and the extra few little things. She doesn't have to carry books and things like that at this point, so there's no concern about that. But once she gets into higher grades and needs a bigger bag, this won't do. But she loves it and she's using it, and that's the great thing. And she's added this fuzzy heart pom-pom thing on it. So that was great. I did notice after a while that I needed to reinforce the ends here because they were starting to, like the rope was really pulling on the fabric. So I reinforced that a little bit. But it's been great, and the fabric, which is a quilting cotton, has been a wonderful medium weight sturdy fabric to use. And then I decided to try to make myself a top, and I got a pattern called Shirt Number 1 by 100 Acts of Sewing. I cannot remember her name. So she designs very simple patterns, which is great for somebody like me. And I seem to be extremely intimidated by sewing garments for some reason. So I decided to do that top, and I decided to take an old weird kind of, it wasn't quite a tablecloth, it was a strange piece of clothing that my husband had brought back from the Philippines, but it was like a tablecloth. And I thought, I'll just use that to practice. And I'm really glad I did, because this is an epic fail. The simplest top possible, and it's a complete epic fail. So this is the top. That's the front. That's the back, because the fabric had different things happening on it. First of all, it's gigantic, like gigantic. I didn't even bother cutting the threads because I was just like, ugh. I just had problems with every little thing. I think, and you might be saying if you sew, this is so simple, how could you do it so wrong? Because I think two things. Somehow I think in order to sew, you have to get into a certain mindset, and I think that I wasn't quite getting that. I think you have to get into this very methodical, planning, doing each step, sewing, you know, ironing each moment, pinning well, doing all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't think that was necessary. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna do this. And I realized, because it's an absolute epic fail, that I probably should sew once I've gotten a hang of that, once I've realized that, and I can get enjoyment out of that. It's like with knitting, you just, for me anyway, I just feel like you just do it. And because it's a slower process, you know, every little decision isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily have a huge impact, right? Whereas in sewing, it can. So first, I just did the hem really, 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 really badly. I didn't fold it properly. It's folding out and coming, doing all kinds of things, and I was just super duper sloppy. It's almost like I needed to do this really badly. I don't know why, but, and then I didn't understand the instructions about the bias tape, and so I just decided to do what I wanted to do. I didn't go on YouTube. I didn't do anything like that, and it's also like it's just flipping up. It's not going down properly, and so it just doesn't sit properly. When it's actually on, it actually sits okay, but it looks terrible. So that was my epic fail. And I haven't sewn anything for myself since then. However, I did decide that I remembered that there was a skirt, very simple skirt, in this issue of Making, which was the issue number 3 called Dots. And there was a very, very simple skirt pattern in here for children and adults by Ray Hoekstra, who is the designer behind Made by Ray patterns. So she had this very, very simple skirt, really kind of shapeless, not necessarily for me, but I thought I could try making that for Isla. Isla doesn't wear a lot of skirts. There's the little children's version, but I thought that's okay. I just really need to practice and kind of get myself into the mindset. So she chose fabric, and I sewed up the skirt. She chose this very simple fabric. I had all kinds out, but I did a good job overall. There are things that I need to change, but I actually sewed everything. I mean, not sewed everything. I ironed everything. I measured everything. I did it properly. The hem is actually very nicely done. So I realized it's just the kind of thing where you just get into, you kind of get into the groove and you just do what you need to do. I made the waist a little bit too big, I realized, and I also used white thread. I did the hem second, and this hem I found a gray thread, which was a much better fit. So I might actually take that out, make the elastic a little bit smaller, and use gray thread for this, if she's actually going to wear it. But it was just a really good practice for me to do this. And what was great was you kind of self-drafted it. I didn't have to cut anything out. I measured the fabric and I just went ahead. I decided not to make it with as much ease as the pattern seems to have in the pictures, which I think will work better. But anyway, so we'll see if she'll actually wear it once summer comes. But even if she doesn't, that's okay. I really just needed to practice. So I am hoping that my sewing journey improves, because I think it really would be great to be able to make some pieces. I don't necessarily want to sew my entire wardrobe, but it would be great to make some nice skirts, make some tunics. I would really like to make a quilt. I watched a couple of these segments of Jacqueline of Brooklyn Knit Folk, her podcast. She did a 10-part series on making a quilt and really, really explained things well. So I thought I might just do that. So anyway, I think it's just a great thing to get into, and it's, you know, a little bit about the balance that I wanted more in my life, bringing in different creative avenues, and yeah, so there you go. So balance was my word for the year, and if you remember, it was about, not necessarily about eliminating things, but it was about bringing variety and having a variety of things, because I felt like I had become a little bit monothematic. And so I think I'm getting there. Could I have more balance? Absolutely. The last 2 months have been a little bit intense around my house. There have been a lot of physical and mental health issues happening with different people and different family members, and so there's just been a lot to manage, as well as daily life and work and all that jazz. So there were times where I thought I felt really quite skewed and really just needed quiet, but I realized, you know, I was doing things through that too. I was doing the sewing. We also had the guests for a month, you know, like it was crazy around here, I gotta be honest. Well, then we lost our second rat, Einstein. We had to put him down a week and a half ago, and that was kind of the end of the whole thing. It was like that was sort of the last drop, and after that things have kind of calmed down, which has been great. But that was hard to say goodbye to our little guy. But yeah, no, and we had a fundraiser for my son because he's going to Ireland this summer with a youth group, so we had a fundraiser for them, and that was a huge, we fed 80 people. Anyway, it's been crazy. But through that, I used to do yoga every morning. I would get up and 20 minutes early and do about 15-20 minutes of yoga, and somewhere along the way I lost that habit, so I've been slowly getting back into that, and it feels fabulous to get up a little bit earlier. The house is quiet, nobody's up, and I'm doing yoga. It's just wonderful. So I'm really happy to bring that in. The sewing has been another thing. I've been listening to books more. I finished Dracula, which I had spoken to you guys about, and really enjoyed that. I'm now listening to a book called Through Black Spruce by Joseph Boyden, who is a Canadian author, and this is a story about Indigenous people. It's really interesting, and so I'm bringing some different things into my life, and I'm really enjoying that. So could there be more balance? Absolutely. But I'm finding it, which is really, really great, and I'm really enjoying that. So yeah, so I think that's it for today, guys. I always feel like I talk so very much, and we've had lots of different distractions, but anyway, I have enjoyed spending a little bit of time with you. I hope you've enjoyed a good cup of something, or a glass of something, or a bowl of something with your crafting, and continue to do so even when you turn me off. Take care. We'll see you soon, hopefully in 3-4 weeks, and hopefully I'll have a finished Arwen sweater, and maybe even halfway through another. We'll see. Take care. Bye-bye.